Good morning. First of all, I want to thank Lakshmi Tamil School for inviting me to be here. It gives me great pleasure to be with the young Tamil students. I want to thank Lakshmi, Raji and Akila who thought I'm worthy enough to be here to make this presentation. And they also selected 4 topics, geologic topics for today. Because I'm a geologist, I'm more than glad to talk about geology. And these topics, I'm going to take you on a geological excursion all over the world. But I'll show examples from India for each topic. So I selected volcanism, meteorites, plate tectonics, and tsunami. And if you like the talk, you can thank Lakshmi, Rajiv and Akila. If you don't like the talk, blame me, because I am the one who is responsible for any mistakes I make. Next one. When we talk about volcanoes, we think of Mount St. Helens that erupted in 1980. They were showing live television on CNN when this happened. I was here. One of the best things that happened was in Philippines called on Pinatubo, and that erupted and created large volcanic ash and so on. This is what we think of volcanoes when you think about volcanic eruptions. Next one. But there are volcanoes all around the globe in the Pacific Rim that we call Ring of Fire. And these are the volcanoes take place because of the friction in the plates. Some of the examples I'm going to talk about today is, next one. There are 3 examples I have selected, one from Hawaii, one from Iceland, and one from India. Next one. This is a volcano in Hawaii. It's underwater, but there is a dome of lava come out, and it's above the water. Next one. What happens is, this is the lava. When it cools, it becomes volcanic rock we call basalt. So when you look at this, there is a slight bend. What geologists do when they see this in the rock, they say that the lava was here and it is moving in this direction. How do you know that? Because in the live area, the lava is here and it is moving in this direction. Next one. This is another volcano in Hawaii called Mauna Loa. Here, the magma, which is the molten rock, pushing upward, forming a dome. What is the difference between a magma and a lava? If the molten rock is within the earth, we call it magma, and if it comes out, we call it lava flow. Next one. This is one in Iceland, located here, and this is like a river of lava flow. This is about a couple of kilometers long. Do you know where is the longest lava flow is? Next one. It's in India. It took place 66 million years ago. You can trace from all the way from Bombay to a small town called Rajamundry in Andhra Pradesh. This is about 1,500 kilometers long. So India has the longest lava flow. Next one. So the next topic is the meteorite. These are fireballs coming from the skies and hit the earth. Next one. Where do they come from? It's in the solar system. This is the sun. All the planets are moving around, but there is an asteroid belt like that. We have different names, meteorite, bolide, asteroids, and so on. They're all the same. Next one. No, go back. Go back to the previous one. Yeah. So this is the solar system. What happens, once in a while, the meteorites or the asteroids veer off from the normal course. Like for example, if you're driving in the highway 85, the car in front of you takes off for no reason and move to the next lane and hit the car, and there's an accident. The same thing happens in the asteroid belt. Some asteroid takes off and hit the planets on the adjacent Mars, or Earth, and Jupiter, and things like that. So how they come out, next one. This is almost like a rain shower. The meteorite shower comes and hit the Earth. But luckily, most of them burn out before they hit the Earth. But some of them do hit. Next one. This is the craters formed on the surface of the Mars. Next one. These are the little craters formed on the surface of the Moon. So if you plan to go to Moon, be careful. There are a lot of meteorites come and hit. Next one. There are also a lot of meteorites hit the Earth. These are all over the place on the global map. I'm going to show you here 4 examples. One in Arizona, one in Mexico, one in Argentina, and one in India. Next one. This is the one in Arizona. This is about 1 kilometer wide. You can drive up there. This is the crater formed some 50,000 years ago. Next one. Sometimes the meteorite come very close, and this is the Earth. NASA has a website. You can go and watch how many meteorites coming close to the Earth on a daily basis. For example, you can go and see today how many meteorites are coming close to the Earth. Next one. So there are so many meteorites coming. This one hit Argentina. This is the large piece of meteorite that hit Argentina a long time ago, 5,000 years ago. Next one. This is the largest meteorite that ever hit the Earth. That hit Mexico is called Yucatan Peninsula, and this is called Chicxulub. This is the one that wiped out most of the dinosaurs. Next one. In India, we have one called Shiva crater offshore Bombay. When that hit 66 million years ago, we had dinosaurs near Tiruchirappalli in Tamil Nadu. And even today you can go and see in the rocks the bones of dinosaurs in Tiruchi. If you're lucky to go to Tiruchi, look for those rocks. Next one. The next one is what is called Kumari Kandam. In Tamil literature, there are literature saying south of India, there is a large continent called Lemuria or Kumari Kandam. It's almost 4 times the size of India, but it doesn't exist. So people wonder what happened to it. There are a lot of theories. They were submerged underwater, tsunami came and hit, so they disappeared and so on. So I want to give you some scientific background behind this Lemuria. Next one. There was an English geologist by name Philip Sclater. He was studying animals in Madagascar, just east of Africa, South Africa. They were called primates, the lemurs. And he also studied fossils in India. And he found fossils of the lemur in India. How did they get there? There are thousands of miles of water in between. So he proposed that there was a large continent called Lemuria that connected Madagascar to India, so the animals can go back and forth. That was a theory in 1864. Next one. And there was a geologist in 1912 called Alfred Wegener. He was a German geologist. He studied animals all over the world, and he thought there were animals in Australia and India and Africa. So he suggested there was a large continent called Gondwana that were all together, all these continents were together, and they started drifting apart away from each other some 200 million years ago. People thought he was crazy. How can the continents move? Some people believed him, a lot of people didn't. Next one. Then the two English geologists came along called Wine and Matthews. And at that time, it's in the 1960s, there were a lot of new developments in science and technology. They developed machines, and they were able to show that Alfred Wegener was indeed correct, that the continents were moving away from each other in opposite direction across this continental drift, what he calls seafloor spreading. So what happens is, there is the seafloor, one side moving this way, the other side is moving this way. Next one. So coming back to India and Madagascar, so India was 200 million years ago was here. So the animals were moving back and forth. Then India started moving gradually, slowly toward Himalayas. And they hit the Himalayas, formed the Himalayas. So you can explain how those lemur fossils present both in Madagascar and in India. So you don't need a large continent to explain the passage of lemur fossils. That's the scientific aspect of it. Next one. The last topic I want to talk about is tsunami. Tsunamis are caused by undersea earthquakes and they generate large waves that we call tsunami. Next one. In 1958, there was a large tsunami happened in Alaska. It's 524 meters tall. So this large tsunami, if it hits Chicago, there is a large building called CS Towers, and it would hit the antenna if it occurred in Chicago. So these are large waves, and they can destroy cities, kill people, and so on. Next one. This is a large rock transported by a major tsunami in the South Pacific. Next one. In 2004, we had a tsunami in the Bay of Bengal, started near Sumatra, and the generated tsunami waves hit South India, Sri Lanka, Somalia. There are about 14 countries was hit by the tsunami. 227,000 people got killed by the tsunami. Next one. It is important to understand what happens when a tsunami comes. You have earthquakes, comes, destroys cities, and then move back. What happens when the tsunami wave goes back? A lot of things got buried long time ago, get exposed. I'll come back to this point a little later. I studied this myself and I published in 2006 in a major technical journal. Next one. This you can see in Sri Lanka, the originally shoreline was here. When the tsunami was moving back, the shoreline moved about 300 kilometers. This also I published in that technical paper in 2006. Next one. Now let's go to Mahabalipuram. They have ancient Hindu heritage temples in Mahabalipuram. These are some of the temples built during the Pallava dynasty. You can go there and see these elephant carvings and lion carvings and so on. Next one. When the tsunami wave came, they exposed the old Pallava temples. This is the wave, and these are the ancient temples, got exposed. Next one. When the water receded, the water was here. These are the lion carvings, got exposed, like I showed you earlier. Next one. And also they found moss and elephant carvings. And the archaeologists studied this, and they dated this to the 7th century Pallava dynasty. So it talks a lot about, tells about the connection between geologic forces like tsunami and the Tamil heritage that got buried and got exposed during tsunami. Next one. So this is the summary of the geological excursion I took you through. We talked about volcanism, the traps, Deccan traps, meteorite and the dinosaur extinction, voyage of India, plate tectonics in the continent of Lemuria, and tsunami and Tamil heritage. For the students in the audience, I would say Tamil heritage is so unique, so important. I know when you graduate from high school, you go to college, you get good jobs, become rich and famous. When you become rich and famous, always think of Tamil heritage. It is so important and unique. Do whatever you can to protect, preserve, and promote Tamil heritage. Thank you for the opportunity. Next one. Do you have any questions? Do you have time? Do you have time for question and answer? Yes.
So is there any immediate threat that what you're showing, right? Is there anything that, that we need to be worried, or we have to be like...
About tsunamis?
Yes.
Tsunamis, if you live in coastal areas, particularly in places like Japan, where we often have earthquakes and tsunamis. So in Japan, they already took care of it by building structures and buildings to kind of take care of the earthquakes and tsunamis. In fact, the word tsunami came from the Japanese language, tsunami. So they have to worry about, we have to worry about, but not really.
Yeah.
We have all the modern technology to protect ourselves. Plus we have tsunami warning systems. If there are earthquakes, your geological survey warns in advance. If you are in the coastal area, get out of there and you can move inland. So we don't have to worry about it. Particularly if you live in Atlanta, don't worry about it.
Thank you.
You are safe.
You said like about 300 meters, like Chicago tires, like
Yeah, that's the Chicago, the Willis Tower and the Sears Towers. That's 527 meters. The tsunami wave in Alaska was 524 meters. Can you imagine how big that could be? So it's a huge, that's why I showed you the one big rock from Tonga Island in the Southwest Pacific. Such a huge wave, if you have a big building in Atlanta, it'll be like a dirt. It's no big deal. But Atlanta, you are safe. You can have the next Tamil annual day next year, no problem. Anything else? I hope you appreciate the importance of geology, because you always, Indians in general, we always become engineers and doctors, IT professionals. There are other branches like geology and things like that. It's equally interesting.
So I came to know for the first time that there were dinosaurs in Trichy and that piece of...
You see, yeah, they have rocks in Trichy that has got dinosaur bones, dinosaur eggs. You can go to the museum there. A lot of people, Tamilians, they don't know these things exist.
I didn't know, but to be honest with you, I didn't know to this till you mentioned it that there were dinosaurs.
So you owe me $5.
So was that spotted in Trichy, or it is there, the bone is...
Okay, the rocks in Trichy, they were formed about 66 million years ago. These are Cretaceous rocks. You have to go to the mountains, not in Trichy city, but if they have a museum, they may have the dinosaur eggs in the Trichy city itself. But you have to go away from Trichy, like there is a small village called Andalaipur. I did some research when I was a student in India. So you can go to these inside villages. There are rocks that formed a long time ago. And if you spend some time, if you take a geologist with you, you can take your children. It's fun to look for dinosaur bones and things like that. And there are people who do that. So if you have relatives, ask them, have they seen the dinosaur bones in Trichy?
My wife is from Trichy, so I have
Ask
reason
her.
to go.
Ask her whether she knows of anything about it. Probably she would say no. Any other question? Yeah?
Are geologists available for tours like this?
What is that?
Are geologists available for tours like this?
You'd hire me. I think what happens is, I put this talk together because Lakshmi and others wanted me to inform you the importance of geology. Otherwise, I was going to talk about my education, things like that. But we thought this is a lot more fun and also educational. But unfortunately, in India, they don't give that much importance to things like this, the geological aspect of things. They are so into computer technology and this and that.
Temples. Temples, Jila temples.
Temples, yeah, right. But the Mahabalipuram example I showed you about tsunami, that's one of the most beautiful examples how the geologic forces uncover ancient Tamil heritage, all those carvings and this and that. It's important to understand all this buried Tamil heritage. So I am available as a tourist to go on those tours.
See, I come from Neyveli, there was a lignite mine there.
Yeah.
I know, geologists were valued there.
Yeah, I have been to Neyveli. They have what they call lignite mining. That's part of the coal. And it was in the 60s, Neyveli was a booming town. And even today, I think they are very active. What Neyveli means in Tamil?
I really don't know. I don't know how.
I thought Ney means ghee, no?
Valley is fence.
So Veli means fence, it's a ghee fence, right?
May also means weave.
Huh?
Weave.
Oh, okay.
That's a verb.
So you can do research on what is Neyveli. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it. The idea was it started in 1864. At that time, we didn't know much about geology. They didn't have advanced technology to understand the plate tectonics. And in the 50s and 60s, the advancement in technology made us available to measure the movement of plates, tectonic plates. Once that's available, then we realized the Madagascar and India were together 200 million years ago. So the animals walk back and forth, they're all same place.
So there was never a little.
Yeah, there was never this continent they're talking about. One thing I could mention, it is possible there was a town or city called the ancient Kumari Kandam. It's a small place where the Tamil culture evolved, the ancient Tamil Sangam were held. It's possible it was there, but it got wiped out during tsunamis or submergence of sea level rise, things like that. But it was not an entire continent like they show on maps and things like that. It's 4 times the size of India. If it existed, the science would have found it during the last 100 years. There was so much science evolved, they wouldn't miss a continent like that. There was no evidence for such a large continent. But it is possible a small town or city like ancient Kumari Kandam existed along the coast. Probably there was a tsunami, it wiped out, things like that, but not the entire continent. Any other question on Kumari Kandam? Kumari Kandam, essentially, it's a Kumari continent, it's a virgin land. It was actually started, the idea started in the 1930s by some of the poets in Tamil Nadu. But later, the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam and some of the people in that party, they promoted this idea that there was this Kumari Kandam. There's nothing wrong with that, except they over-exaggerated the size of the continent. That's where the science comes into play. Because we know so much in science, you can either reject or accept based on scientific evidence. That's the part I talked about today, purely on the scientific side of things.
So I have heard that the Trichy rock fort was formed 3.2 billion years ago. So does it mean when it got formed, it was somewhere near Africa and the whole continent moved?
Yeah, if it was that age you were talking about, then the whole thing was closer to Africa, the Gondwana continent I talked about. They were all bunched together. They were in the southern part near Antarctica. And about 200 million years ago, they started drifting apart. Now, for the information of Lakshmi and others, I was going to show maps of those particular aspects of that today, but they told me you have 20 minutes, 15 minutes for talk, 5 minutes for question and answer. So I cut those parts out, just to give you the sense of what is this about. But there are a lot of information available. There are series of maps every 50 million years where India was. I can actually show like a movie how the India was in the south, started moving toward the Himalayas today. There are research universities done for the last 50 years, just tracing India.
So how did
Philip Sclater.
how did he conclude that India may have moved away from?
He did not. Okay, he did not. What he did was, he studied Madagascar and he studied India. He found the fossils, the lemur fossils that are unique to Madagascar, that are found in India. Now, remember this is 1864, we didn't know much about plate tectonics, they were all very ignorant of science. So he suggested, one possibility is there was a land bridge connecting Madagascar to India, and he called Lemur land or Lemur continent. That's become Lemuria. Then the Tamil scholars thought that makes sense because they are looking for this lost land of Tamil Sangam, the first Tamil Sangam, the second Tamil Sangam. They know that it existed, but they couldn't find the land. So they made the connection between the Lemuria and they gave the name Tamil Kumari Kandam. That's how the whole story started.
So when he says that the lemur fossils, is that the modern animals?
Yeah, they are like primate, they are like monkeys. They still live there in Madagascar.
Okay.
They found the fossils in India.
I'm finding a little bit disconnection. So if India would have moved away from Africa, probably it may have long back, maybe like 60, at least 60 million years, maybe?
Yeah.
Before 60 million years?
It started almost 200 million years ago.
Okay.
It gradually moved up. About 50 or 45 million years ago, it hit the Himalayas, forming the Himalayan mountains. Ever since, they're kind of inching upward. But there's not much movement today.
Like 50 million years back, there were no modern animals.
What animals?
Like elephants or any of these modern reptiles or...
Yeah.
So So if you would have found the fossils, you may would have found the fossils based on the dinosaur type of reptile fossils.
Okay, you have to remember, Sclater studied the lemur fossils. He was not worried about other animals and so on. The person who were worried about is Alfred Wegener, who came along later. That's why his theory is more credence, because he studied more animals, he studied more continents, and he came up with the continental drift theory. Philip Sclater kind of focused on one aspect of the lemur fossils. Am I making sense? Go ahead, if you still have questions, go ahead.
Maybe we can talk later. Maybe I can ask you questions.
Yeah, I am ready.
Yeah.
நாம் அறியாத பல சுவாரஸ்யமான விஷயங்களை நம்முடன் பகிர்ந்து கொண்ட விழா தலைவருக்கு நன்றி.